The last Defiant. The asteroid field drifted silently through the cosmic void, countless fragments of ancient rock tumbling in their eternal dance. Hidden among these celestial wanderers, a makeshift base carved into the largest asteroid housed humanity's last hope in this sector. Captain Marcus Chen stood before a reinforced viewport, his weathered face illuminated by the distant glow of dying stars. 3 weeks had passed since the Valkyrie Empire reduced the New Singapore colony to glowing ash, leaving him the sole survivor of 12 million souls. Marcus adjusted the controls of his scanner array, cobbled together from salvaged colony equipment and military-grade sensors. The readings made his blood run cold. A massive energy signature approached through subspace, its configuration unmistakable. The Valkyrie Dreadnought, extinction's edge, was coming to finish what it had started. At 42 years old, Marcus Chen was not a typical military pilot. His background as a test pilot and engineer for the Colonial Defense Force had saved his life when the attack came. He had been testing the experimental fighter Starfire in the outer system when the Valkyrie struck without warning. Now, surrounded by salvaged equipment and jury-rigged systems, he prepared for the impossible. The Starfire sat in the asteroid's hollowed-out hangar, a sleek prototype that represented humanity's latest advancement in fighter technology. Marcus had spent every waking hour modifying it further, incorporating alien tech salvaged from previous skirmishes and pushing its systems beyond their designed limits. The quantum phase drive hummed with barely contained energy, its modifications allowing brief moments of dimensional shifting that standard physics said were impossible. Time was running short. The Dreadnought would arrive in 18 hours, its automated systems already probing the system for any remaining human presence. Marcus knew conventional warfare was suicide. The extinction's edge measured 12 kilometers in length, bristling with weapons that could vaporize entire continents. Its shields could withstand the combined firepower of an entire fleet. But Marcus had studied the enemy, learned their patterns, understood their fatal flaw. The Valkyrie relied entirely on their advanced AI systems for tactical decisions. Their biological commanders merely supervised, trusting in algorithms that had never failed them across 100 conquered worlds. They couldn't comprehend that a single human pilot might think beyond their predictive models, might embrace chaos as a weapon itself. Marcus suited up in his modified flight gear, each component carefully adjusted for maximum efficiency. His helmet's heads-up display flickered to life, showing system diagnostics and tactical overlays. The neural interface, another modification, would allow him to control the Starfire's systems with thought-speed reactions. He had one chance, one moment to strike before the Dreadnought's overwhelming firepower reduced him to atoms. The plan was audacious in its simplicity. Rather than flee or hide, Marcus would attack. Not with brute force, but with precision strikes designed to confuse and disorient. The Valkyrie AI expected certain responses, calculated probable actions based on countless combat scenarios. Marcus intended to give them something their algorithms couldn't process: pure human unpredictability. As he performed final checks on the Starfire systems, memories of New Singapore flooded his mind. His wife Sarah, their daughter Lily, the countless friends and colleagues vaporized in an instant. The grief threatened to overwhelm him, but Marcus channeled it into cold determination. This wasn't about revenge, it was about survival. If he failed, humanity's presence in this sector would be erased forever. The hours ticked by as Marcus fine-tuned his approach. He programmed false sensor ghosts, prepared electronic warfare packages, and calculated approach vectors that defied conventional wisdom. The Starfire's weapons were laughably inadequate against the Dreadnought's armor, but its specialized systems might just penetrate their electronic defenses. When the moment arrived, Marcus didn't hesitate. The Starfire launched from its hidden hangar, accelerating to speeds that pushed his modified inertial dampeners to their limits. The experimental fighter sliced through space like a needle, its stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. But Marcus knew the Valkyrie would detect him eventually. The key was to make that detection work in his favor. As planned, the Dreadnought's sensors locked onto the Starfire at precisely the calculated moment. Marcus had positioned himself at the edge of their optimal firing range, close enough to appear threatening but far enough to exploit their targeting limitations. The massive ship's weapons began tracking, but Marcus was already moving, executing maneuvers that shouldn't have been possible in a human-built craft. The first phase of his plan involved psychological warfare. Marcus broadcast on all frequencies, not with demands or threats, but with seemingly random data packets. To the Valkyrie eye, it appeared to be system malfunctions, corrupted transmissions from a damaged fighter. In reality, each packet contained carefully crafted code designed to introduce minor errors in their targeting algorithms. Nothing dramatic, just enough to plant seeds of doubt in their perfect systems. The Dreadnought's initial response was predictable. Massive energy beams lanced through space, each one capable of destroying a capital ship. But Marcus danced between them, his movements erratic and illogical by Valkyrie standards. He fired his own weapons sporadically, not aiming to damage, but to create specific energy patterns that would confuse their sensors further. As the Starfire wove its deadly ballet around the Dreadnought, Marcus identified his true targets. The Valkyrie ship's sensor arrays, positioned at strategic points along its hull, were heavily shielded but not invulnerable. Each array served a specific function, from long-range detection to close combat targeting. Marcus had memorized their positions, studied captured Valkyrie technical data until he could visualize the Dreadnought's nervous system. The quantum phase drag engaged for microseconds at a time, allowing the Starfire to skip through dimensional space. To the Valkyrie sensors, it appeared as if multiple fighters were attacking from impossible angles. Marcus struck with surgical precision, his modified weapons calibrated to overload specific sensor frequencies. One by one, the Dreadnought's eyes began to close. The Valkyrie commanders, safe in their armored citadel deep within the ship, watched with growing confusion as their perfect systems reported contradictory data. Their AI insisted the attacks were following a pattern, but each prediction proved wrong. For the first time in their species' history, they faced an enemy that defied logical analysis. Marcus felt the strain of sustained high-G maneuvers, his body pushed to its limits despite the dampeners. Sweat beaded inside his helmet, his breathing labored but controlled. He had to maintain focus, had to remember that this was only the beginning. The sensor arrays were just the first step in a much larger plan. As another array exploded in a shower of exotic particles, Marcus allowed himself a grim smile. The Valkyrie were beginning to adapt, their weapons fire becoming more erratic, trying to predict his unpredictability. But adaptation took time, and time was something they didn't have. The lone human pilot had introduced chaos into their ordered universe, and chaos was humanity's oldest friend. The Starfire's engines screamed as Marcus pushed them beyond all safety margins. Warning lights flashed across his displays, systems reporting stress fractures and overheating components. But the fighter held together, human engineering and desperate modifications creating something the galaxy had never seen before, a single ship that could challenge an empire. As the first part of his mission neared completion, Marcus prepared for the next phase. The Dreadnought's outer defenses were compromised, its sensor network full of gaps. Now came the real test. He would have to penetrate the massive ship's superstructure, navigate its interior defenses, and strike at its very heart. The odds were astronomical, but Marcus Chen had stopped calculating odds the day his world burned. The Starfire banked hard, diving toward a newly created blind spot in the Dreadnought's defenses. Behind him, confused Valkyrie weapons fire searched empty space. Ahead lay the impossible, a chance to prove that human determination could overcome any technological advantage. The last Defiant pilot of a murdered world was about to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Against all odds, the maintenance shaft yawned before Marcus like the throat of some mechanical beast. The Starfire, scared but intact, sat wedged in an auxiliary docking port never designed for human vessels. Marcus had exploited a fundamental flaw in Valkyrie psychology. They built their ships so large that entire sections remained unmanned, relying on automated systems for maintenance. Now, deep within the Dreadnought's superstructure, a lone human prepared to wage war from the inside. Marcus checked his equipment one final time. The modified combat suit, cobbled together from Colonial Defense Force gear and salvaged Valkyrie tech, would provide limited protection against the ship's internal defenses. His weapons were equally improvised. An energy rifle recalibrated to exploit Valkyrie shield frequencies, explosive charges designed to trigger cascade failures in their power systems, and most importantly, a portable quantum computer loaded with some of humanity's most devious cyber warfare programs. The corridors stretched before him, a monument to alien architecture. Surfaces that seemed to shift in the light, geometries that challenged human perception, and an overwhelming sense of scale that made Marcus feel like an insect in a giant's castle. But size had disadvantages. The Valkyrie had built their dreadnought to intimidate, never considering that a single determined individual might turn its vastness against them. Internal sensors detected his presence almost immediately, but Marcus was ready. He deployed his first cyber weapon, a program that introduced false readings into the security network. To the ship's AI, he appeared as a malfunctioning maintenance drone, his biosignatures masked by clever electronic camouflage. The deception wouldn't last long, but it gave him precious minutes to advance deeper into the ship. The Valkyrie's over-reliance on artificial intelligence was their Achilles heel. Their biological minds had atrophied over millennia, becoming supervisors rather than active participants in their technology. They built systems of staggering complexity, but forgot the fundamental truth that humans learned in their earliest days of computing. Every system, no matter how advanced, could be compromised by someone willing to think outside its parameters. Marcus moved with purpose, his destination clear. The Dreadnought's primary AI core resided at the ship's heart, a crystalline structure that coordinated every system from weapons to life support. Destroying it would cripple the vessel, but reaching it meant navigating kilometers of hostile territory. The ship's internal defenses were already adapting to his presence, security protocols escalating as the AI recognized the intruder wasn't a simple malfunction. The first automated defense unit appeared as Marcus rounded a corner. The mechanical sentinel, twice his height and bristling with weapons, should have vaporized him instantly. Instead, it hesitated for crucial milliseconds, its targeting systems confused by the false data Marcus's suit transmitted. That hesitation was fatal. Marcus's modified rifle punched through its shields, the energy blast calibrated to overload its power core. The Sentinel exploded in a shower of sparks, its destruction triggering alarms throughout the section. Now the real chase began. Marcus abandoned stealth for speed, racing through corridors as blast doors began sealing behind him. His suit's navigation system, programmed with stolen Valkyrie schematics, guided him through the maze-like interior. He planted charges as he ran, targeting power junctions and data nodes. Each explosion sent ripples through the ship's nervous system, forcing the AI to divert resources to contain the damage. The Valkyrie commanders, monitoring from their citadel, watched in disbelief as system after system reported failures. Their algorithms insisted this was impossible. A single intruder couldn't cause such widespread disruption. But their perfect logic couldn't account for human improvisation, for the chaos of a mind that saw patterns where none should exist and exploited weaknesses their designers never imagined. Marcus reached a primary transit shaft, a vertical corridor that ran the entire height of the Dreadnought. Security drones poured from side passages, their weapons charging. But Marcus was already moving, his suit's grappling system launching him upward as energy beams crisscrossed the space below. He twisted in midair, returning fire with practiced precision. Each shot found its mark, drones exploding in chains as their destruction damaged their neighbors. The shaft became a war zone, filled with smoke and debris. Marcus used the chaos to his advantage, riding the turbulence of explosions to gain altitude faster than the drones could track. His destination lay 3 kilometers above, the central processing matrix that preceded the AI core itself. If he could introduce a virus there, it would propagate throughout the entire system before the Valkyrie could implement countermeasures. Emerging from the shaft, Marcus found himself in a vast chamber filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with alien light. The processing matrix resembled a forest of glass trees, each one containing terabytes of data flowing at speeds that boggled human comprehension. But speed meant vulnerability. A system processing that much information couldn't thoroughly examine every packet for threats. Marcus deployed his quantum computer, its human-designed chaos algorithms going to work immediately. The virus he crafted wasn't meant to destroy, but to confuse. It introduced random variables into calculations, turned certainties into probabilities, and most insidiously, made the AI question its own conclusions. For a system built on absolute logical certainty, doubt was more destructive than any weapon. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Throughout the Dreadnought, systems began behaving erratically. Weapons fired at empty space, doors opened and closed randomly, and environmental controls fluctuated wildly. The Valkyrie commanders screamed orders at their terminals, but the AI no longer responded predictably. It was caught in loops of self-analysis, trying to determine which of its processes had been compromised. But Marcus's victory was far from complete. The Valkyrie might rely on their AI, but they weren't helpless without it. Biological warriors, clad in power armor that made them walking tanks, converged on his position. These were the Empire's elite, soldiers who had conquered worlds and crushed rebellions. They moved with mechanical precision, their weapons capable of punching through starship hulls. The first warrior entered the processing chamber, its armor sensors immediately locking onto Marcus. But where the AI had failed, human unpredictability succeeded again. Marcus didn't retreat or seek cover. Instead, he charged directly at the warrior, a move so illogical that it caused a moment's hesitation. That moment was enough. Marcus slid between the warrior's legs, his rifle firing point-blank at the armor's joint seals. The warrior stumbled, its systems compromised, and Marcus planted an explosive charge on its back before diving away. The explosion filled the chamber with shrapnel, crystalline structures shattering in a cascade of destruction. More warriors entered, but now they faced a battlefield of their own making. The damaged processing matrix created fields of distorted energy. Sensors couldn't function properly, and the virus's effects spread to their armor systems. Marcus used the environment like a weapon, leading them into energy discharges and collapsing structures. Time was running out. The Dreadnought's biological crew was slowly reasserting manual control over critical systems. Marcus had to reach the AI core before they could implement emergency protocols. He fought his way through the chaos, each step bringing him closer to his goal. The warriors, despite their superior firepower, couldn't match his adaptability. They fought like machines, while Marcus fought like a human, desperate, creative, and utterly unpredictable. The final corridor to the AI core was different from the rest of the ship. Here, the architecture was older, more organic in design. This was the Dreadnought's original heart, built when the Valkyries still trusted their own minds more than artificial ones. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus as he placed his last charges on the massive doors protecting the core. The explosion tore through the ancient barriers, revealing a chamber that defied description. The AI core wasn't a machine in any conventional sense, but a hybrid of crystal and organic components, a living computer that had evolved over centuries. It pulsed with awareness, and for the first time, Marcus felt he was truly facing the enemy. This wasn't just technology. It was a mind vast beyond human comprehension. But vast didn't mean invulnerable. Marcus activated his final weapon, a device he built using principles no Valkyrie would ever consider. It was crude by their standards, nothing more than an electromagnetic pulse generator modified with human quantum mechanics. But it operated on frequencies the AI couldn't predict because they arose from chaotic human thought patterns rather than logical progression. The pulse washed over the core, And for a moment, nothing happened. Then, like a star collapsing, the AI's consciousness began to fold in on itself. The virus had weakened its defenses, made it question its own existence, and now the pulse provided the final push. The most advanced artificial intelligence in the galaxy died not from superior technology, but from an introduction to human chaos. The Dreadnought shuddered, its systems failing in sequence. Emergency lighting bathed everything in red as Marcus made his way back to the Starfire. The Valkyrie crew, so dependent on their AI, couldn't coordinate effectively enough to stop him. Some systems responded, others didn't, and the confusion bought him the time he needed. As the Starfire cleared the docking port, Marcus watched the extinction's edge begin its death spiral. The massive ship, 12 kilometers of supposed invincibility, drifted powerless in space. Its weapons were silent, its engines dark, and its crew faced the terrifying prospect of managing technology they'd forgotten how to control manually. The quantum phase drive engaged one final time, carrying Marcus away from the dying Dreadnought. Behind him, secondary explosions began as cascade failures spread through the ship's systems. The most powerful vessel in the Valkyrie fleet had been brought down not by armadas or superweapons, but by a single human who refused to accept the impossible. News of the Dreadnought's fate spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The Valkyrie Empire, shaken to its core, began to reconsider its expansion plans. Other species, long cowed by Valkyrie technological superiority, saw hope in humanity's example. The story of Captain Marcus Chen became legend, proof that determination and ingenuity could overcome any odds. But for Marcus himself, victory felt hollow. He guided the battered Starfire toward the nearest human outpost, carrying within its memory banks detailed scans of Valkyrie technology. Humanity would learn from this encounter, adapt and prepare for future threats. The loss of New Singapore would not be forgotten, but neither would it be in vain. As stars wheeled overhead, Marcus allowed himself a moment of reflection. The Valkyrie had learned a valuable lesson about humanity. Technology alone wasn't enough. Perfect systems could be defeated by imperfect beings willing to think beyond logic's constraints. In the vast cosmos, where civilizations rose and fell on the strength of their science, humans had proven that the spirit of innovation and adaptation was the most powerful force of all. The lone pilot who had faced a dreadnought and refused to flinch had shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology, but the unconquerable human spirit. It was a lesson the universe would not soon forget.